March happened to be one of the best months for pickups, and I have so many new fragrances to discuss, so stay tuned. Hey, what's good guys? Hunter here and welcome back to the channel where I upload weekly fragrance content, so you already know the drill. Hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any future videos, and be sure to check me out over on my Instagram page. But guys, the month is over, and like I said in that intro, I got so many new fragrances, about 15 to talk about in this video today, so it might be a little bit of a long one, but I'm going to try to make it pretty quick. And a bunch of them also happen to be brand new releases of 2025 from both niche and designer brands, so let's get right into it. The first fragrance up is coming from the niche brand Boho Boko, and this one is Polish Potatoes, which is supposed to smell like walking in a Polish kind of food market. And wow, if you love those earthy kind of dirty kind of fragrances, you're gonna have to check this out because that's exactly how it smells. It literally smells like walking in a food market with potatoes all around you, very earthy, a little bit dewy. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never smelled a fragrance with the note of potatoes, so it's kind of interesting to have it in here. It's definitely very distinguishable. You get a heavy dose of this earthy, rooted potato note mixed together with this kind of beetroot, which gives it somewhat of a vegetable green vibe, along with some soil dirt notes. You also have that very woody, earthy oud, but guys, the patchouli in here is extremely heavy as it dries down into patchouli balm. Just an outstanding creation of a fragrance. And I'm a big fan of Boho Boko. They make some of the most outlandish fragrances on the market. So glad to have Polish Potatoes in the collection because it's extremely unique. Next up is another new release from Boho Boko. This one is Oriental Saffron, which is a very spicy, woody style fragrance that's also very unique for its genre. And just take a look at that juice color, guys. It's almost like this purplish hue color, very, very dark. But with this one, of course, you're gonna get that spicy saffron that's a little bit leathery, mixed together with a turmeric note, some cumin, cardamom, just a bunch of spices right away when you apply it. But it dries down into this very dark wood note. I think it's like mahogany wood mixed together with a little bit of this oud. And I believe you also get a pinch of honey, which makes it very different. Another great release from Boho Boko, and I'm not really sure why they crossed out Oriental. I think they're trying to be a little bit edgy with it, but man, this is definitely an edgy fragrance. Worth checking out if you like spicy, woody style fragrances. You have to check this out. Next up is a fragrance I've been wanting for a while and finally have a bottle, and it is Versace Hawaii Black. Now, honestly, this fragrance did surprise me because it wasn't really what I was expecting it to smell like, which isn't a bad thing, but I was kind of expecting an absolute aventus inspired by fragrance, especially being called black and just the bottle design, but it's actually not that at all to me. This is very, very, very similar to nishane hacivat, like very, very close. The original hacivat with, of course, that pineapple, very fruity, but it has this overdose of this earthy kind of old school oak moss note, and just so close to hacivat, guys. When I smell this, I think of hacivat right away. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it definitely seems like it. And if you don't know, hacivat is also kind of inspired by aventus, so it's kind of still in that genre, just not an absolute aventus inspired by fragrance. And just take a look at this juice as well. Very dark, kind of honey-like juice color inside there, and it's very, very strong. On par with hacivat, maybe even stronger than hacivat, which is crazy because hacivat is known to be like a beast mode performer, and this one is just there as well. Love this fragrance, very happy to have it in the collection. I was a big fan of the original Hawaii, of course, which is kind of close to Invictus. I am also curious about Hawaii's Fire and Hawaii's Elixir. I'm gonna have to get both of those in the collection as well. And then I believe they have Hawaii's Ice, so they're cranking out these flankers like crazy within this line, which is a smart move because Hawaii's absolutely took off as a hype beast fragrance. But for me, Hawaii Black is way better than the original Hawaii, guys. If you haven't checked this one out or added it to your collection, I highly recommend you check it out. Next up is a brand new designer release from Yves Saint Laurent, and it is Y Le Parfum 2025. Now, if you don't know, Le Parfum came out a few years ago in the all black bottle. They just relaunched it like this month at the time of this recording in this kind of blue style bottle and completely changed the scent profile, guys. It doesn't really remind me that much of the original Le Parfum or even that Y DNA so much. They completely got rid of that fruity signature apple that Y is known for and kind of just matured it up a little bit. You still do get that kind of spicy ginger note. However, this one turns way more green. It has this kind of earthy pine needle note as well, mixed together with some fern. So it's a very green take on Y is how I would describe it, with a dry down of this kind of warm, cozy amber and patchouli. So it's a lot darker, deeper, and less fruity than Y or even the Le Parfum. Not a bad release, but I can totally see a lot of people not liking it just because they discontinued that and completely revamped it. Still, for me personally, guys, I do enjoy it. I'm not sure if I like it more, if I like it less, but it is still a pretty solid release for what it is. Next up is another brand new designer release that is actually a banger, and it is Azzaro Wanted Elixir. They finally came out with their elixir, guys, and it's extremely good. I love this one. I did review it, gave it a great review as well because it does deserve it. But that might just be because I'm a little bit biased. I'm a huge fan of this genre of perfumery. Very fruity, leathery, and a little bit spicy and aromatic. It has nothing similar at all to the rest of the Wanted line by any means. And probably my favorite one, it is somewhat in the same realm as like Tuscan leather being a raspberry leather. Also, Tumi's 19 Degree, which is my favorite Tumi by far. Not clones, just in the same genre, kind of like cousins is how I would describe it. But the raspberry in the opening is probably one of the best raspberry openings I've smelled in a long time, if not ever. It's so juicy, so fruity, and very, very seductive. And then of course it does have that really rugged, slightly animalic leather dry down that is very good. And the performance is incredible. Of course you expect it from being an elixir flanker. Extremely good release from Azzaro that I do recommend checking out if you are into this line or you like fruity, leathery fragrances. It's worth it. Next is another 2025 designer release, which is Ralph Lauren's Polo 67 EDP, which I also recently reviewed. And I do prefer it over the original Polo 67, which I was actually a big fan of. I just liked how they revamped this one, made it a little bit more mature, and all in all, just less aquatic compared to the OG, and kind of amped up that fruity pineapple note in this particular one. And also adds a very welcoming, kind of resinous, warm dry down that the prior one did not have. So not much to talk about with this one. It is kind of similar to the original. Like I said, just amps up the pineapple, add some warm resins, and you get EDP. And also amps up the performance slightly compared to the OG. I think I got around 2 hours more longevity from this one compared to the EDT. So if you were a fan of Polo 67 like most of us were, it was a very solid designer release from Ralph Lauren even, which I was surprised. You have to check out the EDP because I think most people will enjoy this one over the original, and the nice kind of added longevity is a bonus. Also would say this one is a little bit more signature worthy compared to the original as well. Next fragrance is a new release from a skincare brand that doesn't get much talk, but they actually have very good fragrances, surprisingly. This one is coming from Aesop. This one is Orner. Now I have reviewed and own Aesop Cars, which is a great kind of salty, seaweed metallic fragrance, very good. This one's no different, guys. They can just keep cranking out really high quality fragrances that not many people know about, even though they are a little bit on the more expensive side of things for what they are. When it comes to like the size of these and also being a skincare brand, they are on the hefty side when the price, but very high quality fragrance, guys. This one opens up very spicy from both cardamom and pink pepper. Very, very seductive opening mixed together with a nice kind of citrus punch. But then it does start to dry down with these very elegant, sophisticated florals, just a bouquet of florals in the mid of Orner. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. I never heard of that word before, but it's all good. Now this one does dry down very woody, but it has this kind of smoky cypriol oil note that is very dominant in the base. Just all in all, a very good, spicy, floral, smoky fragrance that I've never smelled anything quite like it. So if you want to check out some Aesop, I do recommend. I hear they got very good skincare. I've never tried them, but their fragrances are extremely solid. Next up, Commodity actually relaunched some of their archive fragrances that they did discontinued. And the first one that I'm talking about right now is Wool from all the way back in 2013, guys. So if you weren't lucky enough to get a bottle of this one when it was in stock, now is your chance because they just relaunched them on their website. And Wool is a fragrance that actually reminds me of way back in the day, like one of my first fragrances, I believe from like Forever 21, which is kind of interesting. It takes me back to then, and I'm not really sure exactly what fragrance that was, but there's something about this that reminds me of it, which is not a bad thing at all, guys. This one opens up very fruity, citrusy, and bright from this zesty grapefruit. Big fan of grapefruit. You get a nice dose of it in here, mixed together with this fruity kind of Granny Smith green apple note, which is extremely dominant. And then it does start to dry down into this kind of soapy, aromatic lavender note with a vanilla base. And I would say if you're just looking for like that dumb reach, compliment getting, crowd pleasing, that's not an offensive fragrance, Woo is one you want to check out. I cannot see anybody really hating this. Also has a nice kind of clean white musk about it as it dries down. Just a solid release from Commodity, and I'm glad they came out with these new bottles in the Archive collection. They're also at a very affordable price as well. Definitely worth checking out. Next is another commodity that I got from that collection. This one I've been wanting for a long time, and it is Commodity whiskey, guys, in the new Archive bottles. And I remember seeing Commodity's whiskey in that old kind of black, smaller bottle than this, and I always wanted to try it. They were popping up at rack stores like years ago. I was never able to find a bottle personally, but man, this one is very good. I think I do prefer it over Woo, the previous one we just talked about. But this opens up with this very dark, fruity plum that kind of reminds me of like Tom Ford's Plum Japonais. I love plum when it's used correctly in fragrances, one of the best fruits. You're gonna get a dark kind of ripe plum immediately when you apply it. It's the most dominant note right away. And as it dries down, you do get this kind of spicy aromatic lavender, and in the base you get this very woody oak. It almost smells like whiskey kind of aging in oak barrels for a few years is the vibe I get. It's kind of interesting though, because this one isn't really that boozy. I'm not really getting much booziness from it. It's more so like oak barrels after the whiskey's been aging in it after a few years, and you put your head inside of the oak barrel and you get that aroma. That's the vibe this gives off immediately, especially in the dry down. Very good release. I'm glad they relaunched it, and I'm gonna be wearing this one a ton, especially during like the colder kind of spring evenings and fall time. Is gonna be perfect. Next up is a Lattafa I actually found over at Burlington, which is Fakar Extrait or Fakar Gold. And guys, this is inspired by my favorite 1 Million by Rabanne, and that is 1 Million Parfum. I've been wearing that fragrance for a few years now. Big fan. Always get so many compliments with that particular fragrance, and this absolutely nails that scent profile without a doubt. Get this very nice fruity grapefruit mixed together with some cardamom, pink pepper, spicy opening that dries down into this kind of solar note, which is the main show of Fakar Extrait or even 1 Million Parfum. Huge kind of sunny solar note going on, which I believe might have actually been one of the first fragrances to include the solar note a few years ago. And then it does also have this kind of ambery, leathery dry down. But man, if you like 1 Million Parfum, you have to check this out because it performs even better than 1 Million Parfum, and that's my favorite flanker of the whole entire 1 Million line. From the ones that I've tried at least, guys, I do have a bottle right down there. I don't know if you can see it or not. That particular one and 1 Million Lucky are my two babies from that collection. But for some reason, I don't know what's going on, but this almost smells better than 1 Million Parfum, and this is only around like 20, 25, maybe even $30, which is a steal for what you're getting. Absolutely check this one out, guys. You're not gonna be disappointed. Next is another brand new designer release that could have honestly been a little bit better, and it is Valentino's Uomo Born in Roma Extra Dose. Now, honestly, I had high hopes for this one because I'm a big fan of Born in Roma Intense. This one I was looking forward to because that naming is sick. I love what they did with Extra Dose, rather than calling it like an elixir, which is a little bit different. And I will be honest, the opening of this one is the best part. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a Sauvage Elixir being extremely peppery and spicy. As it dries down, it honestly gets worse and worse, and it's kind of disappointing. You get this kind of clean, soapy lavender note, and then the base is just a woody kind of generic cedar wood base is what I detect. Not much going on. Is a pretty linear fragrance, which is a disappointment, especially being like an Extra Dose or an elixir flanker, and being way more expensive than the rest of the line. You would expect it to have a little bit more complexity, a little bit more characteristics, but it just does not. I will give it that though. It does perform pretty solid. Of course, I would expect it from being in Extrait de Parfum, but if it came down to like the three, the original EDT, the EDP Intense, or the Extrait, I'm going with the Intense all day, guys, because the vanilla added into the Born in Roma DNA is to die for. This one just is not on par with the intense flanker. But who knows? Maybe some people will enjoy this one. And that's the beautiful thing about fragrances, is how objective these things are. Sometimes somebody will love something, sometimes somebody will hate whatever that person loves, and vice versa. Just for me, the extra dose was a little bit of a flop from Valentino, but let me know down below if you tried this one and what are your thoughts. Next up, Phlur came out with a brand new release, and it is called Rose Whip. Now, honestly, I'm a big fan of rose fragrances when it's done in the correct way for my liking, when it's like very dark rose, very jammy rose, etc. Not so much when it goes into that kind of motherly, kind of grandma rose. This one though does definitely have that nice jamminess about it, which I'm a big fan of. But it's also probably because it has a heavy dose of this fruity black currant note, which is also jammy, mixed together in with the rose. But to me, this smells like a very dark, almost purple style rose to my nose. And then it kind of has this very cozy, comforting amber note mixed together with this kind of cashmere, which almost gives you like a nice cashmere sweater wrapped around you. Solid rose release from Phlur, and I love this new kind of bottle design with the black cap compared to the white caps on the rest of the line. And if you're a woman watching this one, you're going to want to check this out because it does definitely lean a little bit more on the feminine side. But I still had to include it in this list because it's the new release and it's actually pretty good for all the rose lovers out there. And for me, whenever I want that nice rose fragrance, I think I will be reaching for this one quite often. Next is a brand new release from one of my favorite niche brands within like the last 2 years that are very reasonable price. And this one is called 403 Myrrh Shadow. So guys, I'm a huge fan of the myrrh note. It's one of my favorite resonance notes of all time. I love how smoky it is, how warm and cozy it is. And the myrrh in here is absolutely the main star of this fragrance, guys. One of the most heaviest doses of myrrh I have in my entire collection. So this has a very, very good spot in my collection for me, guys. And just smells so luxurious, so expensive. It smells like a $500 bottle easily. And that's the thing I love about Bon Parfumeur, because they create these niche fragrances that are very high quality at very affordable, reasonable prices, guys. You really cannot go wrong with this brand if you want to dive into niche. I think it's one of the best brands to start off with, if I'm being honest. I have so many from them. I have so many favorites from them as well. And this one is by far definitely on the top of that list somewhere. But of course, there is a little bit more going on than just the myrrh. In the opening, you do have this kind of like bitterness, this fruitiness in the opening. Kind of gives off this kind of mandarin orange tone in the opening of this one. Also has this kind of greenness going through, very complex, has a ton of character. But the dry down is by far the best part of Myrrh Shadow, which is usually the opposite. Sometimes like the opening should be the best part, but no. Wait till you get in the base of this, you're gonna fall in love, because that's where you're gonna find that smoky, resinous myrrh mixed together with this kind of creamy, warm benzoin and vanilla. So it's very spicy, creamy, and resinous. You also do get this kind of spicy cinnamon note that does stand out. So if you're anything like me and love those smoky, resinous fragrances, do yourself a favor and check out 403. Next up, for all my Acqua Di Gio lovers out there, I got my hands on the brand new Acqua Di Gio Elixir, which might be the superior Acqua Di Gio in the entire line, guys. This one here is actually pretty good. And that's coming from somebody that owns both like Profumo, the brand new Parfum, which are kind of similar. This one is definitely redundant to those in some way, but it is slightly different as well. You still very much get that kind of aquatic Acqua Di Gio signature touch with a heavy dose of this kind of metallic violet leaf. The violet leaf in here is an overdose of it, which sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of violet leaf, but for some reason it kind of works in this scent profile. And then of course it does dry down, still has that signature green patchouli, which is earthy. But guys, rather than having a smoky incense like you find in the Parfum and Profumo, this one kind of substitutes that smoky incense for a smoky, rugged leather note. So this might actually be the Profumo replacement we've all been waiting for. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but the Parfum was kind of a letdown. It wasn't as smoky as Profumo. So thankfully this one does have that smokiness, but it's coming from leather rather than incense, but still very similar. This one, when it comes to the performance, is probably the best performing one compared to those other two. So for all the Profumo lovers out there, get your nose on the Elixir and you might not be disappointed. So last but certainly not least is another brand new design release coming from Emporio Armani, which is Stronger With You Parfum. Now guys, honestly, I'm ashamed to admit this, but this is my first introduction to the Stronger With You line, which is crazy because I know so many people talk about the original. Absolutely, they have so many flankers like oud, sandalwood, tobacco, etc. But I do got my nose and own a bottle of the Parfum, which is, I believe, the newest one now. And after trying this one, I'm gonna have to go back and get my hands on the rest of the line because the Parfum is very, very good. And did surprise me, especially for being a designer fragrance. Obviously, I can't compare this to any of the other ones. If it's like a true Parfum flanker of the original, I don't know that, but as a standalone fragrance, this is very good because it does open up with this overdose of pink pepper, like an overload pink pepper spiciness right away when you apply it. So through and through, very spicy fragrance with this nice kind of spicy aromatic fougere note of lavender in the mid. But the dry down is the best part as well, kind of like one of the previous fragrances, because in the dry down you get this spicy, creamy vanilla note mixed together with this nutty chestnut note. And I've always heard like the original Stronger With You always kind of got compared to By the Fireplace by Maison Margiela, which is one of my babies. For the winter time, I love that fragrance when it's snowing outside. And even with the Parfum, I can kind of see it going in that direction, even though it's not identical by any means, just kind of similar. But after trying this one, I got to try the original and some of the flankers now because I'm very curious on what the others are like. So let me know down below if you're a fan of the Stronger With You line and which ones you recommend I check out after owning the new Parfum. But guys, that's gonna wrap up my favorite pickups of the month of March. I think we covered like 15 fragrances ranging from like designers, niche, etc. But as always, guys, leave a comment down below your favorite pickups of the month because I know you guys are always getting in bangers and solid releases that sometimes I've never even heard of. So I'm always curious to see what you guys are picking up. But besides that, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, you already know, I'll catch all of you back here in my next upload. Take care, everybody.